I promise you this pinafor top is very easy to make. And if you are a beginner in fashion, you're a beginner in pattern drafting, this pinafor top is very beginner friendly. So let me start by introducing myself. Hi, my name is Lillian of Lillian Fashion Lounge, and I talk about anything fashion, pattern drafting, online and physical classes, and many more. So let's get started. So these are the materials that I'm going to be using for this video. So the first one I'm going to be using is our Ankara, of course. Then I'm going to be using the cotton lining as our lining. And if you decide not to use the lining, it is okay. You can decide not to use a lining for this style. You can decide to use the Ankara for both the lining and the main fabric, or you can decide to use just one layer. So you're going to be cutting your neckline. You're going to be cutting 4 inches width. The width should be 4 inches, then the length, the depth should be 3 inches, but depending on how you feel comfortable, because the neckline is supposed to pass through your head. So when you are cut, make sure that you take that into consideration. So after I've cut my neckline, I'm going to go ahead to cut my lining also, of course. So after cutting my lining, I'm going to be placing the right side of my Ankara fabric. The right side of my Ankara fabric will be facing up, while the lining will also be facing, the lining of the right side of the lining will also be facing down. So, but because lining does not have front, or it doesn't have the right side or the back side, so I'm just going to be placing it as seen. So after placing it, you are going to go ahead to I'm going to be using my pin to hold this down so that it's not going to move. So before we continue, I'm going to quickly explain that after I finished sewing it, I noticed that the shoulder was not laying flat on my shoulder. So what I did was I had to sew it just as you are looking at it. I made a seam of 1.5 inches or 1 inch, depending on how you want to do it, on the shoulder line, so that the shoulder is going to relax. So I've gone ahead to sew my neckline on 1/2 inch, and after sewing, I'm going to be top stitching it and ironing it as seen. So this is after sewing it, I've turned the right side of the fabric, I've turned the right side of the lining, or I've turned it in, so to make it look neat. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to be folding it. I'm going to be folding the sides. I'm going to be folding it on 1/2 inch. Now for this one, if you remember, when I was cutting it, if you want to fold it like I'm doing with my lining, you're going to be adding 1 inch or 1.5 inches, so that there'll be enough space for folding. So after folding the sides, I'm going to go ahead and iron it to make it look very neat, which is very important. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to get my rope for the downside of the lower part of the this pinafor dress. Now I'm going to be using this for like finishing for the lower part. So I've gone ahead to cut a long strip of 6 inches wide fabric. Now as you can see, my fabric has pattern, so it was a little bit hard for me to get this. So after cutting it, I went ahead to iron it because I want it to be neat. So while ironing the rope, I went ahead to fold the edges of the rope. I folded 1/2 inch in and ironed it also, so that the sewing is going to be seamless. And that's one of the things that made the rope look very neat while sewing, and it didn't give me any issues. So I've gone ahead to fold the fabric in two to get the middle of the rope. Then I'm going to be spreading it wide open as seen. Then just to know how wide it is going to be. Now there are 2 ways in which you can actually fix this. The first one is to measure as seen. You first of all measure the width of the pinafor top. Then whatever you get there, you're going to measure it on the rope, so you are going to know where to start sewing. But if you cannot do that, you can also decide to place your pinafor on top of the rope. So then you're going to be marking the place where it stops. So that is where you're sewing. You're going to start sewing on the inner side of the rope. To achieve a seamless and neat rope for a seamless and neat seam for the rope, I'm going to be folding it on the wrong side. Then I'm going to be sewing from there. I'm going to be sewing to the edge on 1/2 inch, just as you can see me doing here. So this is going to give that neat look. So here I'm trying to use my pin to indicate. Sorry, you are in Nigeria, so this is Nigeria for you. So I'm going to be using my pin to indicate where I'm going to be starting, so that the fabric is not going to shift. So I'm going to go ahead and sew on 1/2 inch. But don't forget that you're cutting 2 of this rope, not 1. I'm just using 1 to indicate it. I hope you understand it. I'm just indicating 1, not the 2, so that because of time. So after sewing that, I'm going to go ahead and turn out the right side, just as you can see. Now please, I'm using my pencil I'm just improvising to make it faster. So you can improvise and make whatever you have. You can use whatever you have to turn this, but as you can see, I use my pencil and I also use my hand to make it faster. So after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and iron that. So after ironing, I'm just going to sew 1. Just like I said, we are going to be needing 2. So I'm just going to be showing you how to make 1, so that this video is not going to be unnecessarily long. So I'm going to be placing it inside. I'm going to be placing the edge of the pinafor top inside the rope. Don't forget that I've gone ahead to sew the inner side, the other from the end of the pinafor to the edge of the rope. I've gone ahead to sew it on the inner side before ironing. So here I'm just trying to pin it, use pin to hold it down so that while sewing it is not going to move. So I'm going to go ahead and sew on the tip of the pinafor top. So this is how it looks after sewing it. Can you see how neat it is? So thank you guys for watching. So I'm going to see you in the next one. Bye.